Okay, now flip it around.
You want to get interviewed too, I know. I am Peter Wolf, and this is my story. I was born August 25th, 1959, in the John Radcliffe Hospital of Oxford, England. My parents were both Oxford physicists. My dad studied solid-state physics, and my mom studied nuclear physics. I moved to America when I was 3 years old, as my father took a position at Yale, and grew up in Connecticut from 3 years old. Growing up in rural Connecticut, and, it was very pleasant. Playing flashlight tag with the other kids in the neighborhood, that was very good. And our house backed on the woods, so there was an awful lot of hiking in the woods and fishing, and that was very nice. Well, the first thing to say is that I was a faculty brat, and my father was a physics professor, so I got to hang out with physicists and get access to things in my father's lab. For example, liquid nitrogen, which is good fun when you're a kid. You can do all sorts of great things with liquid nitrogen, such as freeze flowers and smash them, or you can put a piece of lead in it and then take it out and it'll ring like a bell. We had a cannon powered by liquid nitrogen. And I could get access to chemicals. So as a kid, I used to make my own fireworks. I learned which chemicals make different colors.
Did you do any dangerous things with that sometimes when you were a kid?
Yes. I, of course, built things that exploded. But I was sensible, and I never used any metal. I figured if I built it out of cardboard and I wasn't holding it in my hand, there was a minimal amount of damage. So I never made pipe bombs or anything like that. I just limited myself to cardboard. But you can still make a very, very loud noise with cardboard. My mom was Elizabeth Wolf, born 1928 in Leeds, England. Originally Elizabeth Elliot, and then she changed her name when she married my father, Werner Wolf, who until age 7 lived in Vienna and then fled to England in 1937. It turned out that he didn't know his father was Jewish. In fact, we only discovered this after my grandmother passed away in the late 80s. We discovered papers in her safe that showed that my grandfather was Jewish. So now we understand better why they fled to England. My father always thought he was Catholic.
Oh, wow.
A couple of years later, my sister joined us. She got born, Mary Ann Wolf. She lives actually nearby, up in Billerica. And then in 1963, my father took a position at Yale, and we all moved across the Atlantic to Connecticut.
Do you remember anything about the move? Like how you prepared, how difficult it was to move?
No, I was 3 years old.
Okay.
But according to my mom, I kept kicking the seat in front of me on the airplane. And then when they tried to give me some food, I kicked that and it all dumped out onto the floor.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
But I don't remember any of that.
Okay.
I can remember the 707 planes, though, the Boeing 707s that used to go across the Atlantic.
Okay, and can you tell me about your mom? You said she was a nuclear physicist?
My mom was a nuclear physicist. She went to Oxford and got her PhD at Oxford and did postdoctoral work at Oxford. She studied the effect of hitting deuterium with neutrons, which it turns out is research related to the hydrogen bomb, although she didn't know it at the time.
Well, so when the atom bomb was invented, were they using her experiment, her like
No,
basis,
no,
her
no.
theories?
The atom bomb was earlier. The hydrogen bomb came out in the 50s. But it had already come out by the time she was doing her research. But it was still related.
And what kind of career did she build? Did she become professor?
Well, she became a mom, and then later on, she became a professor at Southern Connecticut State College. In fact, she was chairman of the department. My dad was chairman of the engineering department at Yale in engineering and applied science. So, academia all around.
Did you get some sort of not stipend, tuition waiver or something since your father
No,
worked there?
no.
No. Okay.
I believe Yale gave a certain amount of money no matter which college you went to. That was a benefit of being a professor there, is they would give some money towards the education of your kids. But no more because it was Yale.
What school did you go to in elementary school?
So I grew up in Woodbridge, Connecticut. So I went to Woodbridge Elementary and the middle school in Woodbridge. And then I went to a private high school, Hopkins, Grammar Day.
Were you into sports at all in high school?
No, I was the fat kid that couldn't throw a softball very far. So I was never into baseball, basketball, or football, which is probably how I got into table tennis. It was difficult to be a star football player, but relatively easy to be by far the best table tennis player in school.
I see. So when did you start table tennis?
My dad played table tennis in college, and so he taught me. So I was playing when I was a little kid, and when I was 16 and could drive, I started going to tournaments. There was a club in Waterbury, Connecticut, run by David Sakai, and I used to go there, and that's how I learned. Lim Ming Chui used to come by and play David, and that was where I learned to play it for real.
Did you get coached?
Unfortunately, not. Unfortunately, in the 70s, there was no YouTube, and it was hard to get lessons and learn the techniques. So a lot of it was self-taught.
So how did you go up the ranks?
Well, I went to tournaments and gradually improved my rating. I started off like everybody, I think. I started off as a 1200 kind of player and gradually worked my way up to be, a 1700 player kind of thing.
Do you remember any crucial games that you played?
I remember being beaten by the Chewy kids again and again. They were always tiny, younger than 10 years old, and they always crushed me in tournaments. There were always little tiny kids who'd been properly coached as little tiny kids, and me as an 18-year-old losing to them. So that I don't know if that's a crucial game, but I have lots of memories of that. Um, you can see the trophies behind me. I succeeded sometimes too.
So, what kind of kid were you? Were you energetic? Were you
I
adventurous?
Absolutely. I grew up in the country, so there wasn't that many kids in the neighborhood. So I spent most of my time in the woods with the other kids. We certainly played softball and touch football and that sort of thing. And we did a lot of hiking and fishing in the woods. I was really into skiing, certainly, in the winter. In high school, as I said, I was on the chess team. I played table tennis. I didn't play football. I was that kid. I was a nerd. Um, I didn't get many dates. I didn't even go to the prom. So I was not the popular kid. But I had my friends, and we did things that other people didn't do, and we made table tennis varsity table tennis shirts, which annoyed the football team greatly. Since I went to college, I found more people like myself, and didn't have to hang out with the jocks. So we found more people that were into Star Wars or Star Trek or table tennis or chess or nerdy things. And we all spoke Monty Python to each other all the time. Well, I was captain of the table tennis team all 4 years. I majored in computer science back in the late 70s, early 80s, before it was really a big thing. I didn't do any graduate work because back then there wasn't that much to do. There was computer science was just beginning really, and so I went out and jumped into the workplace. I was employee 90 something at Microsoft, and I got to go to Bill Gates' house for a party and knew Steve Ballmer really well, and that was my first job. And then my second job was at List Machines, where I met Richard Stallman of open source fame.
What kind of man was Bill Gates at that time? Did he seem very business savvy?
Oh, I don't know. I wasn't business savvy. How would I know? Um, I can tell you that he lost his license because he liked to drive way too fast. So he couldn't drive when I was there, or at least shouldn't be driving. And this was before he was, the richest man in the world. He was living in a rented house, not a particularly, it was just a pretty ordinary house.
Is there anything you're particularly proud of that you've done in your life?
Well, I'm certainly proud of my kids. I mean, I'm proud that that everybody is out there doing what they want to be doing and nobody is messed up. So that counts as success. That both of my kids are doing what they want to do, not what they feel, not what they're supposed to do. Perhaps they're not sitting in an office somewhere, staring at a screen. They're not. My son is off being a ski patrolman in the winter and manning a tall ship in the summer, and my daughter is. She was going to go to China, but then COVID happened, and nobody can go to China. But she's teaching people here, teaching immigrants here, and teaching children, teaching in the Cambridge school systems.
What is she teaching?
Well, they're 3 year, they're third grade and fifth grade. They're still pretty small. So, but she's having a good time with that, and she's teaching immigrants in Chinatown, preparing them for U.S. educations, basically. That teaching them how to write an essay, or how to study, how to do homework, how to speak English, things like that. I'm proud, that I married the woman I love, and it's all worked out, and we're all happy still, and we're about to do our 30th anniversary.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and I'm proud of the many adventures we have had. I'm proud. Just this fall, for example, we went to Antarctica. That was quite an adventure. We've been scuba diving in the reefs, and some of the more mind-bending things. I went to Iceland, and they were having a volcano erupting, not 10 miles from the airport, actually. And you have to hike for a couple hours, and it's indescribable. It was squirting lava as high up as the Empire State Building. It was jets of red lava squirting high in the air. Thought I was going to die on the hike up. You have to hike up a long way, a big inclined path.
And have you had any health issues throughout your life?
When I was 8 years old, I had Hodgkin's disease, which is cancer of the lymph nodes. Back in the 60s, Hodgkin's disease was considered incurable and fatal, but my doctor was trying an experimental new therapy where he irradiated this part of my body. So they blasted that area with radiation, and I survived. It killed the lymphoma, and I've been fairly healthy since. Since I more recently, the radiation has begun to cause me all sorts of problems. For example, it calcified 2 of my heart valves, and has given me various tumors, which they are now treating. And the treatment itself has caused various problems, such as neuropathy of my legs, so I can't walk properly. I'm hoping that it gets better someday, but it's hard to play table tennis if you can't move your legs. That's footwork is an important part of that game.
And so technically you have what kind of cancer?
Oh well, I have some cancer in my spine, and I have some cancer in my lung.
And you're taking immunotherapy?
No, EGFR inhibitor, which is, I could explain about that, but it inhibits the mutation that is this particular cancer. And so far it's working.
Well, that's good.
So far it's working.
Yeah. Did I understand correctly that you think your current cancers have been caused by the radiation from when you were 8?
Yeah, that's correct. That's what everybody thinks. It seems reasonable. They're all happening in the area where I was irradiated.
It's one of those ironies. It saved your life, but it caused other problems in the future.
Well, I got to have a family and 2 kids that are healthy, and I've done better than many cancer patients. Certainly better than many Hodgkin's patients from the 60s. Most of them died.
Wow.
So I can't complain. Oh, we actually met in a restaurant in Grendel's Den in Cambridge, Harvard Square. Yeah, we went there and then we did a series of dates. And after a couple of years, we got married.
Love at first sight?
It grew. It grew, I think. I was, marriage is a scary thing for everybody involved. But it grew. A funny story, I was going to propose to her on Mount Washington. We were going to hike up to Tuckerman's Ravine, and I was going to do the get down on one knee and give her the ring thing in Mount Washington. But it got too late in the day, and we couldn't make it up there. And I had to, on the drive home, I pulled over, and at the side of the road, the side of the highway, said I wanted to change drivers, and met her halfway and proposed to her on the side of the highway.
All right.
So just about as romantic as you can possibly be.
Yeah, you were probably like, oh, forget this. I'm just going to get it over with.
That's right. That's right. This did not go according to plan.
Yeah. And when did you get married?
1992. We got married in 92. And once again, we got married in Stowe, Vermont, and we were going to get married on top of the mountain, on top of Mount Mansfield. But that morning, it poured rain like you wouldn't believe, and the road up to the top of the mountain was impassable. And so once again, we had to improvise, and we did it in the backyard of the hotel we were staying in. It actually turned out to be really, really good. It turned out to work really, really well. There was great food, and nobody had to go very far, and it was a terrific wedding. And in the middle of, we had a brass quartet that played music for us, and they were playing the Bach Art of Fugue when Robin said, "Let's go." And we started processing up to the Bach Art of Fugue, which I think is a fabulous thing to process to when you're getting married. Much better than the standard march.
Tell me more about your wife sailing.
Oh, she's a big sailor, or was a big sailor. She would do long-distance sailing over the ocean, for example, sailing to Bermuda and back in giant waves. And
So she's not scared of the ocean waves like I am? Or maybe she's scared.
maybe she's scared but loves the sailing more.
Right.
Yeah, no, she described sailing. Don't hit it. Robin described sailing in a race called the Bermuda 1-2, where there were 30-foot swells, and yeah, and the boat itself is, don't hit. And the boat itself is only like 30 feet long. So.
Must have looked like a big monster coming at you.
Yes. Yes, I imagine.
Did you ever go sailing with her?
I've been sailing with her, yes, but not like that. We got married in 1992 and bought this house where we've been ever since. We had my son, our first child, in 1994, and my daughter in 1997. My son is Jeremy, and my daughter is Eleanor.
Is there anything that you want to highlight about your kids?
I'm very proud of them. I mean, oops. I'm very proud of the kids. Um, they are they are both spending their 20s doing good things. I, I, uh, I highly approve. There's time enough to stare at a screen in a cubicle, um, and they're both doing what they like doing. So I think that's very good.
What kinds of things did you do with them when they were kids, as far as play?
Wow, we had all sorts of adventures. We had things we did every year. For example, we went and watched model rockets being launched, big model rockets, 10 feet tall model rockets.
Wow.
We did a lot of overseas travel. They've been to England and Germany, Italy, Austria. We had trips to Europe. And later on, for example, Eleanor took herself to China 3 times and India. And Jeremy traveled on his own to Mexico. So they obviously feel confident traveling now, which is good.
What did you try to instill in them as their father? What kinds of life lessons?
Confidence, I think, that you can do interesting things. You don't have to be timid. Right? And that's the timid dog.
Well, maybe he hears something.
Taz.
Can you describe a special time that you had with both kids in which you had a lot of fun and you felt really good being their dad?
Wow, there's like a lot of times we did that.
Do you have any like funny stories?
Well, in the Swiss Alps, they had a problem with an annoying French child. That mommy, there's an annoying French child at the playground. I don't know if that's a really good funny story, really. Um, oh, there's the high point of our travels where we ate cold leftover pizza in a garbage next to a garbage bin in the middle of a storm in Iceland. So we were driving in Iceland looking for somewhere to eat, and there wasn't any place. It's all empty. It's full of volcanic craters. And eventually we found a place we could pull off the highway, and it turned out to be the trash depot for that part of Iceland.
Wow.
And so we all ate cold leftover pizza in an Icelandic trash.
Wow.
We thought that was a high point.
How old was everyone? You and your kids?
Early teens. So that would have been 15 years ago or so. A similar story was camping in Arcadia Park, where it rained, and we got very cold and very wet and very muddy, and eventually we gave up and went to an incredibly fancy restaurant, which turned out to be much fancier than we had thought. It's the sort of place where every person gets their own waiter. And the waiters all come and stand behind you until till they're all holding the food, and then synchronized, they all put the food in front of people.
Wow.
And there we were, wet and muddy, and completely bedraggled. So we another high point in our lives. It's given my kids a lifelong fear of fancy restaurants now. I love them. I'm very proud of them. I'm keen to see what they will do with their lives. Obviously, my son is now a ski patroller, so one of the things I must have passed on was a love of skiing. We've had various skiing adventures out west, and I did a lot of skiing when I was younger. And I'm very glad to have passed that on.
And what about your wife? You have.
Well, so my son is sailing tall ships, and in her youth she did a lot of sailing, so she passed that on too. So it looks like Robin and I have passed on the things we love to our kids, who are now doing them. They're living out our fantasies.
Wow, that must make you really happy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, my son has a job where he gets to ski every day, and my daughter goes off to places like China and India. That's great. I've always been a software engineer, and I've always been working on the latest thing. So in the early 80s, it was PCs, and in the late 80s, it was digital video. I did a startup called Red Shark that did digital video. And then I got into speech recognition in the 90s, and then machine learning in the 2000s. So I missed the whole internet thing, though. I never joined an internet company, so I blew it.
So digital video in the late 80s?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Wow.
We used to fantasize what would it mean if you could have a gigabyte of storage on your computer. And Red Shark had a suite of tools, including a database, an editor, and a thing that would convert video to the data, a codec, which you could then transmit over the network. We were a little too early, though.
So what happened with that company? Do you know?
It was acquired by IBM for basically what we owed in various things. So everybody broke even.
I wonder what IBM did with it.
I don't know. I don't think they did anything with it.
And so now, what are you working on?
I am now trying to stop bankers from doing illegal or immoral or bad things. So you have, if you're a bank, you have thousands of employees sending each other phone calls and chat and emails and all sorts of different kinds of communications. And you want to sift through that and find insider trading or intimidation or sexual harassment or bad stuff that you don't want them doing. And government regulators insist that banks do this, that they try to stop illegal things, bad things. My stuff is using machine learning to try to classify conversations. You're trying to say, oops, they're talking about insider trading here. We're not actually going into the numbers and doing accounting and finding, money laundering or whatever there. But we might want to, if they talk about money laundering, that might be interesting.
And you've been doing table tennis all throughout this time.
I have. Yeah. Been playing since the 70s, never got any better.
Any advice you would like to give to table tennis players overall, or anything you want to say about table tennis?
Yeah. So the reason the table tennis, like chess, or like I also did many years of Aikido, that the reason it appeals to me is it's a very technique heavy sport. That in some sports you can go a long way just by being very strong and very fast, and there isn't a whole lot of knowledge. But in table tennis, you really need a lot of knowledge just to play at all. If you don't have that knowledge, you won't be able to get the serves back, and you won't be able to handle the different kinds of spin that you'll get, or the placements you'll get. That there's a lot of technique to it, and it's a very fast sport, so you have to apply the technique. Well, you don't get to think about it. Your body just has to do the right thing, and it has to do it faster than you can think. And so,
Like an instinct.
like an instinct, and you get that instinct by repeating a motion. But it's very difficult to know. You need a coach, you need a teacher, so that you know what to repeat, because you don't want to repeat the wrong thing. That doesn't help at all. To get better, you have to repeat the right technique over and over again, like a martial art, so that when it happens in a game, you just do the right thing without thinking about it.
Okay.
It's like skiing through the moguls. If you ski, that you go through the moguls. You don't have time to think about it. You don't make a detailed plan. You need to react correctly to that patch of ice that you hit, or that unexpected lump of snow. You have to react correctly and keep your balance. Same in table tennis.
What would you say is your legacy?
Well, some of my work that my professional work has lived on in various ways. Jaguars from about the year 2000 and Infinity cars from the year 2000 have some of my speech recognition in it. Millions of people have learned English using some of my software. I hope that my current work will stop some bank crime. We'll see.
Is there anything you would want to tell your kids, say 50 years from now? If they're watching this video?
Oh, wow. Surprised me. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I hope you did what you wanted to do and it all worked out, but I have every confidence that you will, and it did, if you're watching this 50 years from now.
So it sounds like you're a very proud father.
I am. Extremely proud father. If this is 50 years from now, you guys go. I hope you both have kids that you're proud of too.
What advice would you give to your future grandkids?
Oh, wow. Well,
How should they go about their lives?
so the world the world changes ever faster. And certainly in my profession, in the computer profession, things change very quickly and very often. What was hot last year is not hot now. You know, Microsoft was on top of the world in the 90s, and now it's Google and Facebook. That PCs and Windows were the dominant thing, and now it's the internet. So my advice is that life is like surfing, or that things change. When you surf, you take your board and you paddle out, and you try to get a good wave. But before the wave gets to you, you paddle like mad before the wave gets to you, so that you're up to speed when the wave gets to you. And then you get a nice ride on the wave. And the important thing is to get off the wave before it gets to the beach. And you'll do that multiple times in your life. Or like skiing in the moguls, you have a vague plan, at least you're going to go here first, but the important thing is that you are able to react, that no matter what happens, you keep your balance and you go in the right way. And you can't plan it all out ahead of time. And that's what education gives you. It's not that you're being trained for a trade. You're not learning to be, a blacksmith or something, which you're going to be for your whole life. You're learning how to learn so that as the world changes, you can change with it and stay in front of it. And I suppose that'll be true 50 years from now. It's certainly true now.
Okay. Tell me about your music stuff.
Um,
How did you get started, and what are you doing now?
so I listen to classical mostly and play the blues. So I like to play the blues, but when I listen, I mostly listen to classical or progressive arty music. And the kind of music I make is blues from outer space. So you take blues and you add effects and you make things that what would an alien do if it were trying to play blues? And I put them up on YouTube. I don't claim they're very good, but I'm not a musical genius. Just like playing with it. This is a blues standard called "Trouble in Mind," and these are images of Pluto. Let me say that I was a big table tennis player and a big skier, and really enjoyed hiking rough trails in the woods. If you love stuff, do it now, because you don't know what might happen. So, like Going to Antarctica was expensive, but we said let's do it now. Don't wait. That's not to say, you know, buy big TVs and fancy cars or something, but for important stuff, do it now.